Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier, President of Action for Life, and this is Father Michael Orsi. Father, we're going to talk about something kind of interesting today, and I'll have to say at the outset that because we take sometimes weeks in advance, we don't know where this is going. But I thought we could talk about Florida's Online Protection for Minors Act.
We don't know as of now if the governor is going to sign it. It doesn't seem like he is, though.
He, according to what I've read, and I'll quote this, seems reluctant to endorse the bill because he says that while social media can cause harm to teenagers, he has great concerns about anonymous speech and privacy.
I side with the governor in being reluctant to sign this because of freedom of speech, number one. You know, the Supreme Court ruling was called Tinker, and it was during the Vietnam War, where certain students were going to school wearing a black armband and protesting the Vietnam War. And the school did not want to let them in because they said it might be disruptive to the school program and to the other students. And Supreme Court said that your rights do not end at the school door. You have a right to free speech. And so people then said, well, you know, the students do have a right to wear that armband. And of course, there are other things that are similar. The only time that you have to be concerned about free speech is if it is going to cause harm. And that's the old story. You can't yell fire in a theater. Right. Yeah. Other than that, when you have to, you know, moderate speech, let's just say it is not the role of the state to do that. It is, for children, it is the role of the parents. The parents are the ones that have to regulate the media that their children are in possession of. A lot of parents don't want to be bothered with that. You know, if you're simply going to say, oh, let the state take care of it. When is the next time the state is going to interfere in your life? Well, 16 years old? What about 18 years old? What about 20 years old? What is free speech? Who decides what's good? Who decides what's bad? You hear about deplatforming, you know, so you get deplatformed. You know, they take you off the media. Who regulates that? Who then is guiding society? Who's directing society? Who's usurping the role of the family? So this is very, very dangerous. I know that there are very, very good intentions. I know there are very good intentions.
And there's a reason for that law.
Right.
If you take the First Amendment out of the equation,
right.
I mean, the stuff that goes on social media, on X, formerly Twitter, certainly on Facebook, I don't go on Instagram and TikTok. And, I mean, there's only so much of this stuff that I can even tolerate. Right. But I look at my kids and grandkids, and, you know, they're on those sites all the time. And some of the stuff is it's questionable in many ways.
It
in
is.
terms of salty language, in terms of sexual innuendo.
Right. And some of the things that they would even talk about for young people. This especially came out during the COVID scamdemic, where you had young people. They were, you know, on social media. They were feeling depressed. They were locked in their houses. They were scared. The whole thing. They're talking to other people, other young people who have the same concerns, the same fears, and then they begin to talk about suicide. I'm alone. I'm isolated. I don't have my friends anymore. I would rather die than live like this. And then you have the influencers, and there are sites where they could go and influence each other. Hey, why don't you just commit suicide? And we'll tell you how to do it too. So it is dangerous. But BC, quite honestly, maybe today more than ever, but the media has always been dangerous. And it's the role of the parent.
You're right.
It's the role of the parent. You know, I think, did you tell me the story of one of your daughters took the doors off?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Folks, it's a great story. BC, why don't you tell the story?
Our oldest daughter, who has 3 daughters. 2 of them were teenagers. The other one was a little bit younger. And she was concerned about their use of social media and getting into mischief. And so she had the doors to their bedroom removed so that they couldn't go there and hide. I think that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah. But you have over the years. Now, when I was growing up, we had a television set.
Right.
One television set. But now, we have television sets in every room.
And that is, I can tell you from experience, televisions and computers in kids' rooms are a mistake.
They really are.
They should be able to use a computer in the family room or in the living room, depending on, your residence, so that everyone can see what's going on.
Right. And a lot of parents, just get their kids all kind of electronics just to keep the kids quiet and out of their hair. So here, go play with this and stare at this thing for, 15 hours a day.
Go into a restaurant and see how many 2-year-olds have an iPad.
It's amazing. They know how to work it better than me. You know what?
It's true.
You know what drives me cuckoo? I mean, folks, please, this is like my therapy session here. You go into a restaurant and you see, a nice young couple come in, right? They go and sit down. You think you're going to have a nice dinner, talking to each other, looking in each other's eyes.
I know where you're going.
Excuse me.
Their faces in the phone.
In the phone. Yeah. In the phone. I mean, look, tell you something, folks. If I took a girl out and she took out her phone, I'd say, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom. And I'd jump out the bathroom window and leave her there. That's what I would do.
I will say I made a lot of mistakes as my kids were growing up. But the one thing is, when we went out to dinner, which we did frequently, a couple of times a week, all the phones had to be put away.
Yeah.
It's when an iPhone was brand new.
Right.
And the kids were all ginned up about it. Nope, phones put away. We're having a family meal here.
Yeah. When I go to somebody's, if somebody invites me to dinner, or to a restaurant, or to their home, I don't even bring the phone in with me. The only time I ever brought the phone in with me if I was on call at the hospital. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Because if I bring that phone with me, I'm distracted and I am really dishonoring my guests or my host or hostess. I'm not giving them what they deserve. My attention.
Do you want to talk about etiquette? How about showing up late? It's like fashionable now to say, I'll see you at 9:00 and show up at 9:20. It's, I learned, and maybe this is the salesperson in me, to show up 5 minutes early and apologize for being late.
That's right. Yeah.
Except at a party. You have to be a few minutes late.
I mean, being on time is very important. I had a bishop once that he was a stickler for being on time. And, he was right, because time is precious and time is money.
And it shows respect for the other person.
Sure it does. And I remember, if we went to a parish and they would say confirmation, if it was scheduled for 7:00, he was going down the aisle at 7:00.
You do that with Mass. You're right on the money with Mass.
Because it's respect for the people. It's respect for the people. You're here on time. I should be on time. Because if you don't, what you're saying is you're not important.
Right, exactly.
You're not important. So, folks, be on time. Be on time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other rules that somehow, with social media, and I'm as guilty as anyone. I'm not passing judgment here. Snarky comments and in some cases outright insults that would never happen in discourse like we're having.
Right, exactly.
But if I can't see you, I can write down, Father, you're a moron.
Right.
And people do it all. I do it sometimes.
Is that what you call me? You're a moron.
I do confess those sins, and I try very hard not to do those things. But
BC, even if you don't use the word moron, you might mean something very, very innocently. So you're going to be late, like you were today. And you take it account. Well, he's mad at me.
Right.
And you're not, or you're just saying, oh, yeah, who do you think you are? It takes the conversation out of context, and oftentimes it could put something in a bad light that was not meant to be in a bad light.
Yep.
And that's what the social media does to us. Now, there's another part of this, folks, that we're just hearing a lot more about, this AI, artificial intelligence. So now, I just was reading about a school, I think it was in California, where else, the kids were making
nude, naked, yeah.
of their classmates.
And it's all generated by AI.
Yeah. So, I mean, could you imagine, the shaming that is involved with that?
And the psychological impact.
Right. Now, who is watching this? Who is watching this? What do you do now? I don't even know if you can get the pictures back from outer space.
We're going to take a break, but one other along those lines. I just read this morning that talk radio stations are generating callers via AI.
Holy.
So they can tell the caller what to say because the caller is generated by AI. So it's like kabuki theater on the radio.
Right.
Crazy.
It is.
We'll be back right after this. Action for Life is proud to sponsor a conversation with Father Orsi. Action for Life is an all-volunteer, pro-life, interfaith ministry that's focused on the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. In addition to sponsoring this TV program, Action for Life provides financial support and life assistance to any woman who wishes to carry her baby to term in anticipation of an adoption. Action for Life also provides financial assistance to a variety of pro-life organizations, including maternity homes, pregnancy resource centers, anti-human trafficking agencies, and sidewalk advocates, but to name a few. Please consider making a donation so that we can continue in the fight to save preborn babies. You can donate online at actionforlife.org. Thank you and God bless. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, at the top of the show, we were talking about the Online Protection for Minors Act, which is proposed here in Florida. And for all we know, by the time the show airs, maybe it will be law. We don't know. Where is the equilibrium between protecting everyone, but certainly our kids, and protecting the freedom of expression?
Yeah. It certainly is a very difficult question.
Yeah.
However, I don't think it's something that is completely new. You, of course, know, before the internet and all the other media sources that we have today, there was something called newspapers. Remember them?
Yeah.
I think they're on their way out.
And they actually, all newspapers back in the day had a political slant.
Sure, they had a political slant. And not only a political slant, but they oftentimes slandered. And if you look at some of the early days of our republic, the politicians really went at each other, all kinds of slanderous things that they said about each other. There were always comic books, and there were always, certain types of lascivious means of presenting people in compromising positions. How do you like that?
Good one.
Yeah. There were also, photographs taken of people that could bribe them, could hurt them, could diminish them, could destroy reputation, right? So this stuff is always with us. It's become more prevalent now because it's at our fingertips.
Easy.
Yeah, it's easy, and the kids do have it. However, I am willing to take the risk of the First Amendment rather than limit the First Amendment, unless someone is going to be physically harmed or hurt by what is presented. And that, of course, is the story with physically harmed or hurt. That we talk about the fire in the theater. What do you have in that First Amendment? Yelling fire in the theater. Yeah, that's because people get hurt. It's dangerous. First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion. We have the right to assembly, freedom of the press. We have all of those things. And if we begin to compromise with that, what's the next one to go? Which one do you pull out? Press, freedom of religion, press, speech. Where do you end up with that? And then we have Big Brother government in control. And it's already gone too far, government control, with this whole idea, we talked about this earlier, of deplatforming.
I think one solution, and boy, this would be a heck of a fight in Washington, but I think one solution is to amend the, I don't remember the code. Right now, internet companies are not responsible for what's posted on, for example, Facebook. Is it Rule 420? Anyway, if that was created in the early days of the internet, so that the internet would flourish. But it's now being abused where I look at X. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, but Elon Musk says everything goes on X.com, right? Just let it go. Well, if those companies were subject to liability when there was actual slander that occurred, I think that would clean up a lot of this stuff.
It may, but in our country, slander and defamation are really very, very hard to prove. In Europe, in Britain, what you do with that, you have to say to yourself, well, is this true? And if you say this is not true, then you can be sued because you put out something called defamation. Mm-hmm. And you have to prove that what you said is not true, or what is said about you is not true. In this country, it's just the opposite. It's that you don't have to prove that it's not true. The person who was defamed has to prove that it's not true.
Right.
So, it's much easier in England for defamation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here, you have to imagine somebody says something slanderous about you or defames you, and then you have to go and prove that it was wrong.
Right.
I mean, you'd be in court forever.
Especially in America.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that English common law and a lot of what the laws we have in America are based on English common law. But for example, we're getting way off the topic here, but litigation. Mm-hmm. When you go to the UK, if you sue somebody and lose, you're paying your bill and their bill.
That's right.
Whereas here, if you have someone with deep pockets, they can litigate against a smaller defendant,
of course,
and financially ruin them,
right,
or force them to compromise in some fashion.
Just recently, a woman contacted me, and she said that she had been defamed, and that she was, the victim of harassment from some political group that didn't like what she was doing. And she said to me, "Father, do you think I should take them to court?" And I said to her, "Honey, they have deep pockets. You don't. They can hire the best of lawyers. They can make mincemeat out of you, and you'll end up in the poorhouse by the time you get through with this litigation. And you probably will lose."
Even if you win, you lose.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
The only winners in those deals are the lawyers.
Right.
And I, with due respect to lawyers, but really and truly, so often you have a fight that goes through the courts and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, the lawyers walk away just fine. And either the plaintiff or the defendant walks away very damaged.
Yeah. I mean, folks, I'm not a political person. What's wrong with you? I mean,
Can I write that
down? I mean, quite honestly, if Donald Trump didn't have the money that Donald Trump has, he'd be in the Hootscow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And as it is, I mean, let's not go there. That's a whole other show.
But there's
right? Some of the stuff
truth.
I mean, there may be some legitimacy to some of what is going on with Trump, but a lot of it is just so patently political and has no real basis for the legal actions that are being taken against them.
But how would an average person defend themselves?
That's the problem.
Can't.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And so that part of British law I love.
Yeah.
Because it makes people think really, really hard and long before they bring a lawsuit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so their courts aren't clogged with all kinds of nuisance suits.
Yeah, that's what we have. Tons and tons of nuisance suits. Yeah. And innocent people being,
railroaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll take a break at this point. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, folks. Over the weeks, you have become more and more familiar with our program, Conversations with Father Orsi. I know that you are enjoying the programs because you tell me that you do. I want you to be sure that you should never worry about missing an episode because you can go to actionforlife.org and catch all of the episodes that we have produced over the last year. Now, also, extra added bonus, you can watch my
Homilies, my weekly homilies about the Sunday readings. That's also on actionforlife.org. Lastly, both of these adventures, conversations and the homilies, they cost money. And I'm going to have to ask you if you can help us out, because so many of you tell me how much you enjoy the program. Some people tell me our Sunday wouldn't be the same. We record the program, we watch them during the week. This is an expensive enterprise, and we think it's an important way to get out the gospel message and to talk about those issues of the day that are important to us as Christians. So please go to your website, actionforlife.org. There is a button you can click for donations, and please, please be generous to us to keep this show on the air. Your Sundays will not be the same without it.
Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, we're kind of all over the place today. The First Amendment versus the harm that social media sites are doing to our young people, which is undeniable. I don't know. I truly don't know. How do you fix this? Where do we go? What do you see?
What I see is what we began with. This is the role of parents. Period. It's the role of parents. Unless you can say that this, whatever it is, up on YouTube, on Twitter, or whatever the case may be, you can say this is so dangerous that in a normal circumstance for the average person, the reasonable person, that's one of the standards we use in law, the reasonable man or woman would say, this is terrible, this has to come down, okay? Other than that, I mean, it has to be egregious. I think you have to just leave it where it is and let the parents supervise their children.
So we really need a campaign for parents.
Yeah, it's with the parents, it's with the family. And the other part of it is you don't want to give Big Brother government more power than Big Brother already has. We talked about those Bill of Rights, the 10 Amendment, the 10 First Amendments to the Constitution. They're there as protections for the state and protections for us. If you start tampering with the Constitution, say, well, let's tweak this a little bit and let's tweak that little bit, you can end up losing your rights. Now, but when you look at the Constitution and you say we have 28 amendments, you're also saying to yourself, we only have 28 because the Constitution is so important. We just shouldn't be tampering with it just because we feel like tampering with it or because it's something in the air, all right? There is a process. It's either a convention of the states or 2/3 of the members of the House and the Senate, and 2/3 of the states, a convention of the states where the states meet and take a vote, or 2/3 of the states, they decide that we want this amendment.
Via referendum.
Yes,
yeah.
A referendum of the states. But that's 66 and 2/3%.
Which is why the Equal Rights Amendment has never passed.
Right, because the states are saying, wait a minute, this could be dangerous, this could contradict what we believe as Americans.
Which proves that there won't be any amendments anytime soon.
No. You look at the Constitution and you say to yourself, this was pretty well thought out. You don't tamper with it. Just let's take, for example, you tamper with that, First Amendment, religion, speech, press, and right to assembly. Say, well, let's take out the right to assembly. That means people can have recourse to the government if they feel that they have been in some way damaged by the government. Well, if you take that one out and then there's no recourse, the government can do whatever the government wants to do.
Right.
Religion. Well, I'll decide what's a good religion, what's a bad religion. Look, folks, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think the Church of Satan is horrendous. But freedom of religion, if you want to worship Satan and go to hell, that's guaranteed in the Constitution. What happens if I say in the Constitution that let's get this freedom of speech out of here? Well, that means the government tells me what's right and what's wrong.
Means that shows like this would end.
You better believe it. We'd be off the air. We'd be off the air. And this is what's happened in the communist countries, where you don't have freedom, the freedoms that we have today. Speech, religion, press. Look, I know that the left wing has tremendous control over the media, tremendous control. But that doesn't mean that the right wing can't do the same thing. You know, it's a battle of ideas. And I think that Elon Musk, I got to give the guy a lot of credit. He bought Twitter, he made it X, and he says anything goes. Put it up there. It's, you know, it's up for debate. It's up for discussion. And I think that that's something that we have to be open to. We shouldn't be afraid of sharing opinions, sharing our ideas, our thoughts, our concerns with other people. The truth will eventually win. The truth will eventually win. I firmly believe that. But, you know, if we limit ourselves and we limit other people, how will we ever grow as individuals too? Right. We have to grow. And sometimes it's those things which we think are the most egregious. And it's those things that make us think more clearly about a topic and about, you know, who we are and what we want to be as human beings and as a nation. Let me just give you, you know, an example. The Constitution. When we look at it, we say we have 28 amendments. What is the 25th Amendment?
What is it? I don't know.
You don't know. That's the 25th Amendment is where you can remove a president because.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
It never came up until Trump was elected.
Right.
Nobody knew about it.
Right. But, you know, you have that kind of an amendment there because suppose a president is unable to fulfill his office.
Don't go there, Father.
And I'm just
his
saying,
term's almost over.
I'm just giving you an example, but there's also safeguards built into that. That, you know, it has to be the vice president calls a session with the cabinet. The cabinet has to approve of this. It becomes something obvious. So just suppose you had somebody who is physically, mentally incompetent. Yeah, that's a good thing that you have a safeguard to protect the country.
Sure.
You know, so, and it's wise. An originalist sense. What did the founders mean when they wrote this? It's what the founders meant, not what you just make up because this works for us now for an election, right?
Right.
Again, I just can't take a law and give it to an administrative judge or some part of the administration of some department under the president's cabinet and say, you decide what this law means. You don't do that. This is what the text says, not what you want it to say. And that's why this Constitution is such a wonderful, wonderful tool, such a wonderful thing. So, you know, if you don't have a copy of the Constitution, get a copy of the Constitution. And when people try to limit any of your rights, know if what they are saying is detrimental to our way of life in America. We are a people guided by the Constitution and never ever give up that right.
Thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again next week, same place, same time, for a conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Until next week, have a great week and God bless.